with a little health and a little wealth and a lot of love.
What is inflation?
So inflation is the increasing cost with decreasing value. Is that
Almost.
The depreciation of the dollar?
Well, yeah, I would say that has a lot to do with it. But what happens with inflation, inflation really is the cost of goods and services increasing, which erodes the power of the dollar. Inflation is measured by two different ways. One is the consumer price index, and the other is the producer price index. So the consumer price index, it measures month over month. I believe it's a monthly analytics report, and it has very specifics for food, services, and say, hey, gas is $3.17. It was $3.15, nationwide. And the reason why this is important is because you can understand exactly how much your dollar goes. And for the producer price index, it can get really technical here, but there's like three different ways. It just measures how much services are, or goods and services are, from the employer standpoint. So you measure both of these. And you could break it down, I think it's called crude, where you measure the raw cost of goods sold. So let's say that, I'm just thinking like a chocolate bar, and cocoa. So let's say cocoa has increased, and you think about that.
What it costs to produce that good.
Exactly. But that's just one. There's like three of them. So it really understands exactly, why corporations, why businesses are selling. So I think it's important to understand what inflation is and why does it matter. So inflation is so hot right now, and arguably like cryptocurrency, there's only so much of Bitcoin, and it goes into the blockchain technology, which I won't get into today. Maybe if you guys are interested in Bitcoin, I might have someone speak on Bitcoin that I know in one of my friend groups is a very avid Bitcoin investor. But if inflation is not kept in check, there are loss of purchasing power, so the value of the dollar. You also have uncertainty and volatility, international competitiveness. So as you sell goods and services, our costs are higher, and I think if you look at some international companies or countries, if you travel like Thailand or the Philippines or Bali even, the dollar goes so far because their local economy is like the value of their dollar is not as high as ours, as if that makes sense.
They're able to produce more at a lower cost? Is that?
No, I don't think they can produce more at lower costs. It's actually, I'm going to say the opposite. It's just they're not able to, like steak and lobster over there is like $5. When over here it's like $20. But that is how much it costs for them and their income. So it takes a certain amount of dollars for that to be worth that much. $5 is a lot to them, right?
Yeah.
So that's how that ultimately works. And so how inflation is regulated, which is important for this, and I'll probably hit on these topics somewhat again. Inflation is regulated by the Fed, by the banks. And it ties to your interest rates. Right now, interest rates are 7.1%, which is pretty high. I didn't realize that are high. I actually looked them up today. And how inflation is regulated is they tighten the money supply. So the Fed makes it more difficult for banks to borrow money, also reverse, like if you want to buy or have a mortgage or car, whatever it is, that's based upon that interest rate. So that way they tighten that up, so it's more expensive to borrow money. And the fiscal policy is also in place there. So the government will issue pretty high yielding like bills and bonds. And what they do is they gobble up the money because, hey, we're offering these bonds for 5%, 4%, 6%, whatever it is. And that way there's less money out there. So I think cash is king right now. So if you have cash or coming into a large pool of cash, I think you should definitely hold on to that because I think the value of that. There's other things of how inflation is regulated, but we'll get into that in a second. And I think we should read a little bit more, but there's other things to hit on here, like minimum wage and all that too. And by the way, guys, I am looking down. If you are watching our YouTube channel, the reason why I'm looking down is because I watched over 10 plus hours of economists, all that, to make sure the information I'm providing to you is relevant. I live, breathe, and sleep this because I do work in lending. I work for a bank. Also, I've taken economy classes, but just want to make sure the outline and what I'm sharing is very relevant.
With a little health and a little wealth and a lot of love, that's the life that we live. Suits and scrubs. With a little health and a little wealth and a lot of love.
Now let's talk about minimum wage. So minimum wage, this is a fun fact. It was originated in New Zealand and Australia back in the 19th century. That's where the whole minimum wage concept began. And underneath the Fair Labor Acts of 1938, the United States adopted this and set 25 cents as a minimum wage per hour. And I can get more into the Fair Labor Standards Act. So I remember, I don't know if folks remember this in history class, where you see a bunch of children in factories and you see these ultra rich people, and the divide of the wealthy and the lesser stricken people were pretty significant. It was huge gap there. And so it is important to understand the 725. And I did do some math here, and usually I wear glasses when I do math.
Is the math in today?
The math is definitely mathin'. Okay. So check this out. If you were making $7.25 per hour, which is the minimum wage right now, which I didn't know was that low. And I'm not a socialist.
I used to make $5.50 an hour at Venice
Mine was like
Pizza.
$5.15. My first job. No, $5.75. I was so proud because I made 50 cents more than
Gosh, I used to make $10 an hour in residency.
Jeez.
If you on the weeks that I worked 80-hour weeks, I'm sure it
$10 an hour.
$10 an hour. But anyway, we digress.
Yeah, digress. So if you make $7.25 per hour, that is 1,160 40-hour week times 4. That's before taxes are taken out. So the average rent in America right now is $1,100 to $1,500. People are like, "Where is that rent at? My rent's $20." Yes, it is. That's the average. Bear with me. Yeah. Average grocery bill is $300 $800. The average child care which is astronomical, is $600 to $1,200 per child. This is monthly. The average transportation cost, which really just shocked me, was $813 a month for families. So this is this is like $3,000 a month without having any extras, $3,000 a month. So that is 3 times what minimum wage is. But Congress does have in legislation right now, they're very interested in raising the minimum wage to $15, which is will be about $2,400. Is that livable? No, but it's more, it's more reasonable.
With a little health and a little wealth and a lot of love, that's a life that we live. Suits and scrubs.